say, like that God writes straight with crooked lines, because you never know, but every single thing that I've ever experienced has led me here.
That is so beautiful. It's like, just Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Mystical Davies podcast. My name is Roman Rose, and today I have such a beautiful guest. Today I have someone who has co-authored a book with me, Dr. Masa Dawson, Dawson. So she is a leading voice in the field of mind-body healing and the director of Recall Healing USA, as well as Assistant Director for Recall Healing International. Dr. Dawson began her journey with Recall Healing in 2007, studying extensively with Dr. Gilbert Renaud. What began as a curiosity quickly became a deep calling as she witnessed profound transformations in individuals who are able to shift long-standing health challenges by uncovering the emotional roots beneath them. Her academic background is both rich and interdisciplinary. She holds a bachelor's degree in social work, a master's in religious studies, a master of science and psychology, and a PhD in mind-body medicine from Saybrook University, where her research focused specifically on the lived experience of recall healing. In addition to her academic work, Dr. Dawson is trained in a wide range of modalities, including German New Medicine, neuro-emotional technique, neuro-linguistic programming, hypnosis, coaching, and guided imagery for health. She is also certified through the Center for Mind-Body Medicine and brings over 20 years of experience in education. At the heart of her work is a powerful premise that our emotional conflicts, especially those left unspoken or unresolved, can manifest within the body. Through recall healing and mind-body medicine, she helps individuals uncover these deep layers, make meaning of their symptoms, and move beyond and towards integrated, conscious ways of living. As she often says, we are as sick as our secrets. Today, we'll explore how emotional, mental, social, and even spiritual experiences can shape our physical health, and how through awareness and integration, we can begin to shift not just symptoms, but our entire relationship to healing. Wow. With that, I would love to introduce Dr. Dawson to the Mystical Davies podcast.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here, and it's an honor for me to be with you too. I love that.
Yeah, Dr. Dawson. I mean, you've just done so much incredible work, I feel like, in the realm of healing. How did you get into this, form of healing? Like, how did recall healing specifically, like, I feel like these healings come and download into us, in various ways. So I'm curious to hear how this manifested in your life.
Sure. Well, my mom had been given up for adoption, and she was in 13 different foster homes before she was 2 years old. And there was a severe amount of trauma and lots of different kinds of abuse and sexual, physical. And so and then my grandparents raised her, but that 2 years, as we know, can be super, leading in our life of how we respond. And so I really saw so many somatic things going on with my mom, and she would go to the doctors and she would try to get, help, and they would tell her that it was all in her head. And, but I would see my mom suffering. And so that was kind of the beginning. She got hit by a car when I was 11. And so then it was like it kind of put me into a different space, and taking care of, but just being the oldest and the only girl, and so kind of seeing all of that, and I never was a fan of like Western medicine, especially pharmaceuticals. Like I didn't resonate with that at all. I felt like it served a time and a place,
Mm-hmm.
and it's good to have it available, and it could really open and save lives in some
Mm-hmm.
cases, but it should be a last resort, not a first. And so along the way, I worked in the medical placement unit of social work in the LA County, and would see these kids like that had been abused by their parents, taken away, oftentimes because of addiction, and there was like so little hope. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't do this for my life, and then went into teaching. I was going through a divorce, and I'm like, I needed a job in the meantime. And so still having a bachelor's degree in social work, but then starting to teach at the high school level and doing campus ministry. And I loved the students. I loved the spirituality component, and, doing retreat work. And so that kind of led to that deeper, and the master's in religious studies came because it was like 2 classes and a thesis, away from the master's, which was going to help my kids, and support us in a better way. And so all of that kind of started happening. And then when I got remarried for the second time, I I had always said, okay, I'm going back. I'm going to get a doctorate in psychology. And so I started on that path, and I was in the master's, and it was like, gosh, it doesn't totally resonate with me. And so the theory was amazing, but in practice, I would see so many people that were still suffering after being in traditional psychotherapy for 20, 30 years. And I'm just like, there has to be more answers to this. And so in that master's degree, I took biopsychology and health psychology. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, my aunt went through a breast cancer. And my her husband was an osteopath, and he found German New Medicine, went to Canada, started studying about German New Medicine. I met my mentor, invited the mentor to come to San Diego, and he's like, oh my gosh, Michelle, this is what we're talking about. It is stress specific. It does make sense. And so we started studying, and from the moment I sat in that class, I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. And I'm going to do my thesis on this, and I'm going to pursue health or biopsychology. And so that kind of led me to Saybrook when I was looking for a PhD. I was like, oh, this is like guided imagery and meditation and mindfulness and movement and food as medicine. What? This is the PhD. This is so speaks to me. And so that's kind of the long and short of it, that's really, and so it was kind of a seed that had been planted from the time I was a child, but not really having any idea of what that looked like. And so, I like to say like that God writes straight with crooked lines, because you never know, but every single thing that I've ever experienced has led me here.
That is so beautiful. It's like, just weaving your way into this moment where it all sort of comes together. That is so interesting. I think the first thing I wanted to kind of go to is how these things are passed on generationally too, right? So generationally, like through epigenetics, it's already within you where this healing work is kind of passed on, and you feel the density of it, and you want to help yourself and you want to help others. It sounds like that kind of was the first step of witnessing and observing. Because I think a lot of the times either that can take you to an upward spiral of healing, or many times having that trauma can also take folks to the downward.
Right. Well, I
basically.
think it's kind of a combination. And so you
Okay.
realize that you're repeating some of those old patterns. It's not,
Mm,
we always say, oh, I'm not going to follow in my mom's footsteps, or, I'm
mhm,
going to be so different than my mom and dad. And
mhm.
then you find yourself like in the similar situations, or
Right.
repeating patterns that you don't really have an understanding about why is this happening and as parents, they like, we gave you this amazing childhood and everything was perfect, but it's not from what they say. And like you said, it's
Mm,
from that imprint in
genetic.
ourselves. and
Mhm,
and so for 4 generations, it gets handed down, 4 to 7 generations, it gets handed down, that the psychological trauma becomes the biological solution in the child.
mm,
And they'll either repeat it, heal it, and repeat it, or repeat it, then heal it. And so it kind of, what is not in our awareness, because Jung said, what is not in our awareness can return as a destiny. So
mm,
the less we know, the more that it shows back up. And so for sure, I was super unhealthy, in so much pain, and also knowing that there was all of this, and having gone through a divorce and seeing that my kids were suffering. This is the last thing I wanted, but yet there was this pattern that was repeating in a different way, but it was repeating.
mm. Thank you so much for sharing that because I know many times when, folks are going through that deep, dark night of the soul, we don't know what to turn to. And I do believe that pain is a calling. The depression can be a calling, these symptoms can be a calling to step into the space of healing. And that's what it sounds like you help people do. It's like to take the healing deeper, and it's not siloed. Like we're not just focusing on the physical, it sounds like, or the mental. Because I'm also, I don't know if you know, but my background is also in psychotherapy. And that was
Mhm.
also my issue of like, we can't just focus in on this one thing when we have the
Right.
bio, psycho, social, eco,
Mhm.
spiritual, energetic,
All of
epigenetic, all of it, right? So when people come to you, how do you help them piece this together when they're coming to you with that pain, with that depression? Like, how do you hold it? How do you hold them in that container?
Well, I always try to meet somebody where they're at. And
Mm,
and in my paperwork, it's to kind of give an overall view of like, kind of, what did you experience, what's your
mm,
name, when were you born, like that matters. Who are your parents? And then, what number child are you?
wow.
And then looking, was there miscarriages, was there abortions, when did you leave your home to become independent, including food, shelter, and clothing?
Mm,
And then list the things that have been really traumatic, list the things that have been the most, and how did you feel about those traumas, those things that you experienced personally. What was it like when your parents got pregnant with you? Were you planned? And so that's all in my paperwork. And then we start to build the picture together. And the first, I tell people, plan 3 to 6 sessions, because after one, you're going to have some big insights. But after 3, we kind of complete the understanding of the basics. And
mhm,
as people work with me, then we go deeper and deeper. But
mm,
as we do a timeline, we do the family tree, I help people to understand. And oftentimes when we go for psychotherapy, we're working on like, oh, I feel sad, like even depression, we can work depression from a biological standpoint. And so I kind of have people hone in on something physical, because when
mm,
you go after the physical, that leads the way to help understand what we're going to get to, that sadness, no doubt about it, but we're going to do it through, when did you start to feel this, experience this, what have you experienced, why was this the best solution for your brain to help you with this.
mhm.
So we build that through the timeline, through the family tree, and what we call the project purpose.
Project purpose. Wow. Can you go into that the project purpose? That sounds very
Absolutely.
fascinating to me.
Yeah. And so the project purpose is the 18 months before we're born. So 9 months before conception, the conception itself, the pregnancy, the delivery, the whole first year of life, that becomes a message that we carry. And so if the circumstances, sometimes our parents don't even know each other 9 months before we're conceived.
Mm.
And so whatever they have experienced in their life and haven't resolved, especially, the things that they have and all the ancestors, what they did experience and what they have resolved, that also goes into our makeup. But more importantly is the traumas, are the things that haven't been resolved. So that goes into the ovum, into the semen, and then it comes together. And then when the conception takes place, what's going on? Is it a planned experience? Is it something that they really wanted to accomplish? Because anytime you make love, you're creating something. And sometimes that creation is a baby. And then what's it like when a person finds out that they're pregnant? Is it a joyful experience? Is it a hard experience? Is it like, oh no, what am I going to do? What's going on? And then what's the pregnancy like? What's the delivery like? What's the whole first year of life like? And so when there's trauma or drama in any shape, that gets imprinted. So the psychological suffering of the parents becomes the biological solution in the child. And so I share my story just because it is, is in the book, but it's just kind of gives the understanding about, I was conceived through rape. My mom, of course, she didn't want to get pregnant, but she also didn't want to abort me, where my father did. They went to Vegas to have me. They got married, and they were only married for like less than a year. I was like 7 months old when my mom left. And she was so severely depressed for most of her life. She's almost 80. She just turned 79. Until she was 60 years old, she experienced depression. But when we started to talk about, goals and dreams and doing all of this, it helped her to move out of that depression. And so doing this work allowed her, to give somebody a future. It was pretty amazing. And so I grew up with a mom that was super depressed. And so one of the messages that she literally prayed that when she got pregnant, that I would be a girl, because a girl was going to save her life. And so I carried that as much of a message of helping mom stay alive, talking her off the cliff, like really we were super close, enmeshed as young children can be. And so that was much of my life. My life kind of belonged to my mom without really having that understanding. And then in my 30s, when I started to learn about boundaries, like a girlfriend said, you're allowed to say no, Michelle. And I'm like, what? That was the first time in my whole life that I had been like given permission to I could say no. That wasn't even in my vocabulary. And so that helped me to understand that it's not my job to keep mom alive. It's mom's job to keep mom alive. And so I started doing a lot more work, found recall healing, really started to learn. And, my mentor said, your mother, he's French Canadian. Your mother, she is freaking crazy. Most of the moms are, I'm a mom, definitely like that, right? Exactly. And so, but it gave me the understanding oh, mom prayed that I'd be a girl because a girl was going to save her life. And here in my work, I'm helping people stay alive. So that was the message that I carried, to help people to stay alive. And now it's my choice. Now it's what I do because I'm passionate about it. I want to help people to have tools about it. But then I had no idea that that's what I was carrying. And then my mom named me Michelle for the Beatles song. And so even, my first husband's George. My second husband was John. I live in Georgia. And people are like, oh my gosh, what the heck? And when I was teaching, one of my students said, I said, like, oh, my third husband is Mark. It's a beautiful marriage. I'm so happy. And so I moved on from the Beatles. And she said, well, Mark Chapman killed John Lennon. And I'm like, gosh.
Wow.
So you think that you choose, but these little remnants of what has happened from when we're, young, it literally imprints. And so another example like that's really kind of fresh and new for me is that when my youngest son, it was my second husband, and I had my two older boys, and we were getting married, and we wanted to live in this one city in a particular area, the school district, all of that. We wanted 3 bedrooms. We wanted a fixer-upper so that we could work on it. We wanted a pool. We wanted all of those things, but we really didn't have the money to be able to do that. So we ended up moving to another city. We had a great house. We worked on our house pretty much the 20 years that we were together. Well, my youngest son, who was conceived shortly after we were married and kind of was in utero when we were looking for houses, and when we found our house, he was, just a little guy. And so we worked on our house. Well, he and his wife to be, they decided they were getting married last year. They're getting married in June. And Ramon, it is amazing because they are living exactly, they bought a house in California, no less. So it's like already like, what?
Yeah.
Where we wanted to live, and with all of the little check marks, and 3 bedroom, where we wanted to live in the school district, a fixer upper, a pool, like exactly like the pool that I wanted. And not only are they fixing it up, but they're doing it before they even get married. And so it was like, that is an invisible loyalty. And
Wow.
there's sometimes where it's good because that's a beautiful thing. And that we get to see like, oh my gosh, like he's totally making that reality come true
Mm,
for us. And
these
so without even realizing
synchronicities. That's incredible. And it's so validating, right? Of your experience and how, because I think many times the scientific community, and I'm not like that, I'm deeply spiritual, you can see the threads that are weaving us together and our experiences together, and you realize some things aren't random at all. That
I don't
they're a
think
way,
you guys are
right?
right.
They're a way, they're like blinking lights of saying you're going the right way. This is, like it's all making sense. It's all coming together.
It all fits together. It's all
Mm,
connected. And even scientifically, there's many theories that are actually quite like easily to prove, easy
mm.
when you just apply those, you see it. And so that's also pretty cool. And we know we live in a quantum world. So it's all
Exactly.
scientifically, validated through that.
Exactly. Right. When you look at quantum physics, like it makes sense. We
Mhm.
live in a wild, fascinating universe. That is
Yeah.
incredible. One thing that came up while you were talking, especially about how our parents, allow, like how you've helped your mom, you created that space for her to heal through this healing work, right? Did she want to do this healing work? Because I know many times we enter the healing space, right? And sometimes because I know a lot of folks who are probably watching, we all have like aging parents or nearly aging parents, if our parents are anywhere from 50s all the way onwards, like they're getting there. And so, how do we help our parents who may not have languaging
Mhm.
around healing work, because I think many younger adults, they are finding their way to healing work and they're more open. More and more folks are becoming open, my age and younger and around this age range. And I'm noticing a lot of the older generations are having such a hard time understanding how the world is shifting and moving, and you know what they know 30 years ago does not exist at all. And I don't think we as a society are paying attention to how those who are growing older, like they also need deep support but may not know how to ask. And so it's
Mhm.
beautiful because I think that topic you just spoke of like how your mother now has like this freedom to a new way of experiencing the world and feeling the world. That's beautiful to help her get to that space. It almost like makes me so emotional to know that it took her so many years to get there, but she's there. And
Right.
that's
And
wow.
it's so, it is so beautiful to see. And although the world is very different, even from when I was a child, for sure,
Mhm.
and new understandings, the feelings remain the same.
Mm.
And so when you meet people, it doesn't matter. And there was a book that I read in grad school about aging well, and they had taken do you know that book? It's by George Valiant, and it took a group, several longitudinal studies, put it together, and he started studying like what this, and it ended up being something so different. So it was a group of inner city boys, of girls that were super smart, that had gone to college early in San Francisco area, and then a group of like of college just boys that had gone. And so they ended up studying them for all the different reasons. So it didn't matter socioeconomic or any of that, but there came out of like what they started to look at was what what did it mean to age well? and and so they found that having a spirituality, having friends that were younger and older, having the means to stay like happy and to stay moving, these were all like common to people that aged well and lived beyond 80 years old. And so I think it was 80. I'm pretty sure it was 80, but like to be qualified as the elder group. And so when I work with people, I'm shocked of how many people that are in their 70s and 80s that
Incredible.
actually really understand and want to get that. And biology doesn't change.
Mm,
That's the cool thing. So that when you work on biology, it doesn't matter how young you are or how old you are, it remains the same.
mm,
And so helping people to understand, to meet that, to build this puzzle that all of us have for different reasons. And then when we are actually related to these people, what we experience in our life, our emotions, our feelings are exactly what our ancestors have experienced and what they feel. Different situations, different stories, same exact feelings. And oftentimes when you look at it and dissect it, it's actually very, very much alike. It just like you don't see it, it's ambiguous, ambiguous, ambiguous. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, how did I never see that before? It's exactly the same. So it's like mom, dad, and kid, and then later on, mom, dad, kid, or to the authorities and that kind of thing. It's fascinating, but it's the felt experience that leads the way. And so that is ageless.
wow. So it's not that all different,
It's not. It's
addressing
just that we don't understand that they had different things. It looks different, but underneath it's exactly the same.
beautiful. Thank you so much. You have so much wisdom. I love this conversation already.
Thank
Um,
you.
so with the healing work that you're doing, with the recall healing, people are seeing physical, it sounds like what you're saying is like physical symptom relief pretty quickly, right?
Yeah,
Because a lot of
that
folks are
kind of depends. It really does depend. Sometimes it's like home run, and right away you see it, and you're like, what? That's amazing. I even still get surprised sometimes because simple tools, but it's profound. Like right when you see somebody transform out of a cancer, it's like it's brilliant. It's
Mhm.
amazing. That actually did happen with my grandson. He had a brain tumor when he was 4 years old, and we found this story. And within 2 hours, he was a different kid. We had been working on like depression, and we didn't any idea that he had a brain tumor. And so for 6 months, we're like, oh, they had moved. It must be depression. We changed his diet. We did all of these things. And then we found the story about how there was the everything fit in line, and how my son had been threatened, and this guy dies. And then right after he dies, 2 weeks later, my grandson starts to exhibit symptoms. And as soon as we understood that mold is in link with death, is in link with different aspects. So, when people have mold toxicity, then I might ask them, who died? Because in nature, mold comes for things that are dying. And so it's no different for us in our body, in our wisdom. And so once I learned that, and then it was in the cerebellum, and the cerebellum is related to all, when we're forming in our mother's womb, that we have all the vital organs, and then we have the protective shield around those organs. And so the cerebellum is responsible for that. So if we have an issue with protection and integrity, then the brain will download into the cerebellum and simultaneously onto the body part, sometimes the brain itself. And that's what happened. It was an issue with the father, waist up his father. It was an issue with protection, being threatened, and integrity, like questioning my son, are you going to be a good guy? Are you going to be a good father? Are you going to be a good husband? And all of that. And the baby takes it on from the parents. And so when this guy dies suddenly, the brain says, oh, energetically, doesn't even know, but, oh, you're not at risk anymore. His life is not threatened anymore. That, even though that was in the past, it hadn't been resolved entirely. And so 2 weeks later, he's exhibiting symptoms. And so it takes us a little while to find out what's going on. But the moment we realized what it was, my son, and it's all energy. My son talked to my grandson's picture, and he said, this was mine. This was not yours, honey. And you don't have to carry this for me. I release you. 2 hours later, he was going to wait until he got home and do it, but he did it at work. He was working nights, and my daughter-in-law was like, did you talk to Adam's picture? And then he said, well, yeah, I didn't want to wait. Why wait? And for the first time in like 6 months, he has color in his cheeks. His eyes had changed. He still had to do surgery because his body was compromised. But at the end, it was benign and not cancerous. And that was the difference. Baseball-sized brain tumor. And it worked exactly like I had learned it through German New Medicine and recall healing.
Incredible. Wow. So you have these personal stories, just sort of really just to acknowledge the work that you do and validate the work that you do. That is incredible. Like, it sounds like, speaking to the body so the symptoms don't manifest as solutions to the problems, right? Like the body, the material world is manifesting to kind of work out whatever the emotional auric issues epigenetically are being passed down. So your work is to speak to those parts, right? Kind of like parts work we do in psychotherapy sometimes, but you're taking it a step further and really somatically also addressing so much of this.
Exactly. It's like you begin to see that the body is not malfunctioning. It's more turbo function to help you with the problem. And so for if the problem is big or ongoing, then the brain will say, this is a threat to your survival. You need help with this. So let's take it out of the psyche and download it into the body according to how you feel right now, to give you that turbo function to help you with this big problem that you have. And then you either resolve the problem through a practical solution or a transcendent solution, just like this guy dying. That's not normally what we want, but it is a solution, a practical solution that now my son is no longer threatened at all, and the family can live in peace. So it really is that it's not what we want or what we choose, like from a prefrontal cortex kind of decision. It's actually what our body believes, what our brain, what our amygdala believes is going to be the best solution to help
Mm.
you with that conflict. And when you unpack the bag about it, then you can clear it.
Mm. And it also relieves you from blaming yourself for half of the stuff that we face in life, right? And you can kind of look at it as this is an opportunity to look at what's been passed down to me, what I've taken on subconsciously,
Mhm.
in my muscles, in my tissues, in my organs. It sounds like you're doing such deep work with the muscles, with the tissues, with the amygdala, and so these different parts of the body. That is so fascinating. I love that. And because I think you've already addressed this, you're not speaking to the mind only, you're speaking to several parts of folks and their healing journey. So it's like once we make a pattern visible, right? Like, for example, in this case, this issue with your grandson, right? Once his father was able to kind of relieve him of that, like his body is able to kind of pick up on that very quickly and
Yeah,
notice
it's
I'm
the
really,
energy.
it's the
It's the
energy.
energy, right? And so because awareness is 80% of the game. And
Exactly.
so, and so once a person becomes aware of that, then it gives the opportunity to, like, that can be the immediate shift. Sometimes it takes a while to understand that. Sometimes there's little nuances. If the brain has used it once, it can use it again
Mhm.
because it's about biology. It's about staying alive. And so, it doesn't make sense from that prefrontal cortex. Like if you're trying to think about it from a rational perspective, nobody wants cancer. Nobody wants extra weight. Nobody wants to, like, ruminate or want to choose death by suicide. That's not really that's their struggle, but that comes as a program in response to other things.
Mm.
And so once you understand that all of these are special biological programs, and when you start to honor those experiences in a very specific way, it can clear the way so that it stops. Anne Anselin Schutzenberger was a French psychologist, and she wrote a book called Ancestor Syndrome. And she would do a person's genogram, and she would start to see, oh my gosh, like there's this magic square of children with birth order number 1, 2, and 3. They're separated from each other, but then 4, 5, 6, if there's 7, 8, 9, however many kids, but it went in this pattern of 3. And then she looked from above, and it would be the whole 1, 4, 7 row would have the same kinds of issues. It could be the same kinds of diseases. It could be accidental deaths. It could be depression. It could even be, occupation. 2, 5, 8 row, the 3, 6, 9 row. And we say they line up. And so when we don't understand what those ancestors have experienced,
Mhm.
then it can be a download to us that we repeat it. When we're named for people, when that's like an extra, like it's almost like that invisible loyalty that we say invisible loyalty. It's an
Absolutely.
invisible loyalty that gets carried out. And so it's kind of amazing. But she found that, and in the beginning, early 2000s, I think it might have been late 1990s, but there was a movie called What the Bleep, and it talked about these kinds of things like energy and all of this. And
Yeah,
one of the things that they did was they realized that as soon as you observe something, it changes the outcome. And
absolutely.
so when you observe that this is going on in the family, then it can be broken.
Mm.
And that's what we also find.
Exact. Oh my gosh, I love this. Yeah, this is the type of work I've done. My sister and I do with our own family lineage too. And it's so powerful because once you start seeing the patterns, you realize it breaks, the
Exactly. It's
chain
so
breaks.
easy.
Right. And you choose not to pass it on. And yeah, this podcast for me has been about bringing this type of work alive. So it's just I love everything that you're talking about because it's in such deep resonance with me too.
Oh, so
Um,
great. on. I
Yeah.
love that. And I
Yeah.
love when you deeply connect with someone and you just know like, oh yes, this is it, you
This is
know.
it. Yeah. And I think that is like, the healing that people really are seeking is like deep healing, not just surface level, like going to therapy day in, day out and not seeing anything. You're just talking in circles,
Right. And you're just
not.
talking about the same thing. And so
Mm,
when you're guided to talk about actually the things that are going on, it leads the way to actually that is what psychotherapy is all about. And
mm,
there is also like, that, it's definitely an important aspect in
absolutely.
our life, right? And this work is a particular type of, deep diving, but I give
Mm,
people the tools. And then, I have other people that still see their therapist
mhm,
and, that to process certain things, but then they come back and we talk about it in a different way, dive deeper.
absolutely.
And so that is, but that's what made me think like, gosh, 20, 30 years of working on the same exact thing and never really getting over it. I wanted to be able to have to make a difference differently.
And you are, I can like feel it at such a soul level, you know,
Humans.
um, just how much love that you have for humanity and wanting to provide that deeper peace, for people to finally feel that deeper peace in their life. And it happens through addressing the pain that comes with being human, and these are powerful tools and practical tools too that you're offering. And one more note that I wanted to make is as a therapist, because I'm also a channeler. And so I'm deeply connected to the cosmic energies and the realms. And
So beautiful.
they just
I love
come
that.
through, they just come through, these energies just come through. And there isn't a way to explain that work. Like you said, that documentary, What the Bleep. The first time I heard about it, I was in a program at Columbia University, and my professors told me about it because I was studying, to become a therapist. And like I've already felt energy, but now that science, like quantum physics, proves this work, it's so real. And it's a felt experience, is what I want to share with folks. Like it's a deeply felt experience. And once you feel it and somatically it clicks, you do see the shifts and the healing happen
Mhm.
in profoundly, fast paced way. Sometimes it's slow, but once it clicks,
But it can be super fast for
it
sure.
can.
And it's like,
Right.
wow, and just because of our human self, we think, gosh, that's really amazing. And because I
Mhm.
think that it's beyond that whole quantum
Yeah.
thing, it's beyond our absolute understanding. It's just
Mm.
so vast.
Mhm. Part of your work also sounds like it's like to remind your clients and patients and everybody is that, we're not alone, right? Like to utilize your community, to utilize guides like you through these life experiences. So, what would you say to someone who's like struggling right now and doesn't know how to ask for help? Like how can they ask for help either from someone like you? Because I know people will be interested in maybe reaching out to you. Um, and they're on kind of the verge of deciding, because I know sometimes people think financial reasons or this or that. There can be so many reasons why we don't
For
go to
sure.
that healer. Yeah, so if you want to speak to some people who might be on the fence about in their healing journey.
Well, I like to tell people because people, the financial, all of that kind of thing does come up, and especially in this era, and
Right.
I will tell people also like don't let it be because of money. We'll figure out a way, But there's a
Mm,
lot of things on YouTube that are actually quite free. Like
mm,
I have a channel I'm on,
mm,
you're on and giving beautiful reels and things like that. It's a great place to start. And
mhm,
then, you know, I tell people it's progress, not perfection.
mhm,
And that wherever you're at, the alternative to stay in the pain is no fun. And so the only way through it is through it. You can't go over it, you can't go under it, you can't go around it. And part of life is really about learning these lessons and taking that step. And what happens is that we become who we were always meant to be when we do the work. When we're not weighted down by expectations or who we should be or any of that. And so I have like I have like just a intro workshop that's quite inexpensive. If people want to work with me, like it's not like traditional therapy where it's every week. It's, in the beginning, it's every couple of weeks, and then it kind of goes out to once every 3 weeks to a month, because I teach so many tools and it can be a little bit overwhelming. And so I want people to practice it and just kind of marinate in it really, and just to see, and then come back to the table and let's talk about what worked, what didn't work, how are you feeling in your body, and then I teach them another tool. And then, go practice that and see how it works, and see what else comes up. And so wherever a person is, just taking a step, whatever you feel drawn to, go for it, because that's where you're being led. And sometimes I'll tell people, sometimes I might plant seeds that other people will water, or other people have planted seeds that I get to water. That's the coolest thing. And, you don't have to have it together. Like I've done a lot of work, but I still struggle in some areas, my kids still struggle. And so all of those things keep me humble, keep me on the path. None of us are immune from this life, we all have our things that we are slowly kind of navigating. The benefit of seeing somebody like me or like you is that because we don't live that experience, we've had, certainly if you're in my office, I've had something very similar to you, not exactly, but walking with you through it. That's the only difference, is that I have walked through it. And so I can help walk with you through it. And that's it. And I can see something that you maybe not be able to see, and to help people to change perspective. When you look at that, many things, change the perspective, you change everything.
Beautiful. Wow. I hope you can really feel into Dr. Dawson's words, because, you can just hear so much authenticity and truth in what you're saying. And there's such a deep humility. And that's what I look for in a healer, in someone who's holding healing space. So I highly recommend Dr. Dawson and her teachings. And many of you may know, because I know a few of you have reached out about the book Together We Rise. She's one of the co-authors she's written a beautiful chapter that I've had a few friends reach out, and because I think yours is the first chapter, right?
It's not the first one. I think it's like it's a few in.
It's a few in.
The second one was my friend, Dr. Leah, and
there you go. Oh, it was Dr. Leah. There you go.
Yeah, Dr. Leah was like right in. I was like, wow. So
incredible. So please, read the book if you want to know more about her teachings. I'm going to be linking her website. And I love what Dr. Dawson said about, you can start anywhere, start with her, YouTube videos, perhaps feel into her energy. She's so beautifully just suggested of like just feeling and starting with wherever you're at, maybe you're at a full session and maybe you're building up to it, but there are other ways that she can support you, whether it be, through her page or some of her YouTube videos, which I'm going to be collaborating with you on YouTube, maybe if you have a channel, and then that way they can get to your channel immediately too.
That would be great. That would be awesome. I haven't been so great about YouTube, but there is stuff on there. Yeah. But even just putting in my name, because I've gotten to be on podcasts, that's, or Recall Healing, you get a lot of information, especially my mentor has things on there, and it is growing, and that's so cool. That's why I wrote my dissertation on it, because as we know, without empirical evidence, it's not, it's not really trusted. It's not really validated. And so now that I'm teaching hundreds of facilitators how to do this, especially in Europe, I've gotten to teach some here. We've done an institute here, but in Europe, I've done literally hundreds since 2020. And so there's about 3,000 cases of, successful cases of applying recall healing. And so that's very cool to see it growing like that.
So you can learn too. It sounds like this healing.
Yeah, you can. I'm starting an institute actually on it's coming. It's almost done. I thought it was going to be done by now, but it will guide the person. I did it in person before, but it was like it's hard in this world to, and if you want to do it. And so I have developed an institute for, United States where you go through, you learn how to become a practitioner, you take the workshops, I should say facilitator, and you take the workshops and you start to apply the tools and you become a facilitator of recall healing. You need to have some background in psychology or medicine or, or even spirituality. If you have a chapel or, a minister, that's all that I accept all of that.
Oh my God, this is so beautiful. It's like music to my ears. I wish we had you in my program.
Oh gosh, I would love to like be a part of it. One of my girlfriends, she has the New England School of Integrative Medicine, and so I'm getting ready to try to do some classes online for her, and it's growing like that. But I would like to see it in academia because it would be amazing.
Right. I'm going to send so many clients and people your way, and may even dive into your teachings myself, which I feel so called to because the way you
I love that, Ramon.
Yeah, because you just are so grounded in the way, you speak about these things. And I think we need both. We need a grounded methodology and to kind of root it in the body, because sometimes we can, in the spiritual space, it can be a little floaty, which is fine. Right. But
it's fine, and it has a place, and I wouldn't even say that spirituality isn't a part of what we do, because it is mind, body, spirit, right? But when you stick with the biology, you start with the biology, it gives that framework, it gives that exact framework to walk through it, and that's the most amazing thing.
Absolutely. And it's what we need, right? Because you can't separate one from the other. It just is. And you're supporting the isness, the totality of the experience, right?
The isness. I love that.
Yeah, right. And which I really love, because I love when you're talking about epigenetics and all of that, because I do think many people don't realize how much of our ancestors we're carrying and how much of our parents' stuff we're carrying. And that's where a lot of folks sort of hit a block of like, wait, what do I do with this? And you're going and hitting all of those different corners and bringing them all into play, which is beautiful.
Well, and so many people say, oh, that's in the past, and, we don't want to go there. But you kind of have to go there, because if you don't take care of those wounds, they're going to show back up. And, I have said, when you don't fix your cut, then you're going to bleed on everybody that you see. And so those patterns will never be broken, and they'll just continue to be repeated, not having the awareness. So just by cutting somebody off in your family, it doesn't mean it's going to resolve the problem. It's going to show up in the next generation. Absolutely. Where they cut off that same, birth number. It's crazy. It happens so many times.
Right. And I come from an Indian household, so I get it, like being both like American and Indian, like I have two cultures that are both have their own issues, deep issues, growing up in the States right now, we're going through a lot, and we're moving as a country and as a people and as a community here. And then my other community is also shifting and going through its things. So it's a fascinating time to be alive, and we can no longer run from the past, or run from the ancestors, run from, ourselves. in essence.
because it's here. We're being faced exactly with what our ancestors did get faced with.
Exactly.
And we haven't known, or we've been told something that is not entirely true, and so that is why it's coming back up. And so
Mhm.
we have to take our part to be able to, and it just begins with us. Like I hear people say all the time, like, oh, my child, I want you to work with my child, and I'll say, well, I want to work with you, because when you do the work, you heal your child.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. And like you said, I think you said something about like secrets, something about secrets of like
We're secrets are sick as our secrets are.
we're sick as our secrets are, which I think it's also goes on the same lines of like, shame dies when you share it and you bring light to the parts of you that feel shackled and full of shame. And there's no harm in saying, because I know I'm like, there's been some pain in my lineage. And
Mhm.
my sister and I, we were handed those cards pretty at a young age because you could feel it. You could just feel it. There's so much beauty that comes with it, but there's also a lot of pain. And,
Mhm.
and those of us who are psychic and intuitive and already kind of on or have been helpers or support system to our parents, which when you said that your mother asked for a daughter, my mom asked for two daughters too. And
Right.
that was fascinating because I'm like, it's the same thing of like we become like a support system, especially the feminine does, the patriarchy and all these structures have really sort of put us in these positions to heal, and our bodies are so sensitive to it. So we can't let these systems run our bodies. We can't let the outside noise, it's not a conspiracy because all of these things you're seeing now are so true and they're out there, right?
Mhm.
They impact us, and we can choose what we're going to let shape our reality and shape our bodies. And you're giving people the freedom to choose and to free themselves. And that is so incredible. I'm like just blown away by you and the work that you do. And so, a question I like to ask a lot of the guests is, since we are going through such transformative times, um, and moving through a birthing canal, especially here in the States,
Mhm.
especially here in the States, what is something you would like to share with folks right now as we're moving through this birthing canal? And some of us feel like we're on the other side. Some of us may feel like we're going through it and it's a cycle and a circle in life all the time. Would you like to speak to that?
Sure. I would say that it's true that and especially if you consider like age of Aquarius, and
Mhm.
that we truly are in a different time frame. If you look at you know the different things that are showing up
Mhm.
astrologically, we see that many things haven't happened for hundreds of years, and so we truly are in a different space. And so it's hard to not get fatalistic when you see some of the pain and suffering that's going on. But the understanding is that good always wins in the end. And
Absolutely.
as we continue to transform ourselves, living authentically from a place of peace and love, that also transforms everybody that we come in contact with, and that we meet them, we grow together in that, and one step at a time we have something very beautiful and different. And I think that that's what's happening even on the Schumann resonance. I don't know if you saw it, but we kind of look at that. And if for people that don't know about the Schumann resonance, it's what our earth has a heartbeat, and so it normally operates at a certain frequency, 7.83. And it's crazy because when you see these aspects going on right now, you see energetically these lines and these things. And so it's normally in blue and green. Well, there was purple today. And
Wow.
so the frequency and, like the different, it can be off the chart. But the normal like heartbeat is 4.32. And then that's like the 783 frequency. It's like, it's all kind of works together. But the
Incredible.
purple, I had never seen it. And apparently, when the purple shows up, it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's like we're getting angelic hands
Mm,
involved in helping to reshape, to bring peace, to have a harmonic influence in a time of not so great times. Like it's not great, and it is what our ancestors experienced. And so to understand that some of what we are experiencing looks differently, but it's exactly what our ancestors experienced. And so by saying no where we need to say no, by living authentically, by showing up in who you were meant to be, having courage, because like I speak a lot of truth and people don't necessarily like that. And so that's what we're called to do though. And so
100%. Mm. Oh my gosh, yes. You are welcome anytime on this podcast.
oh, I
Anytime.
know. I love
Any,
that. And I would love to
anytime.
come back again and have another
Yeah.
conversation. I love it.
Absolutely. Because I think I would love to talk more about with someone like you who is so well versed in also psychotherapy and medicine and all these different spaces and also spirituality about how to ground those angelic codes and energies that are coming in. Because, once you're healing, what I've noticed too is there's deep angelic medicine and codes coming in because I'm feeling them daily in
Oh, for
meditation,
sure. Oh,
daily.
it's amazing. And if you're
Yeah.
open and you see it, and not everybody has the same gifts.
Mm,
So some people can feel the energy, some people can see the energy, some people, experience something and they're not really sure what they're experiencing. Some
right.
people see animals that talk to them, not like talk as in, hi, how are you?
Yeah, right,
Although
right.
sometimes they can, but more importantly, like here's a message
Yeah.
that is coming right in front of you. And so when you start to pay attention, it's amazing what kind of messages you get.
It's incredible. And,
It is.
and I'd love to start talking to folks like you more about it too. Because,
Oh, so fun.
I'm like ready to come out publicly with some of these things because I think that,
Yeah.
people are ready and they they need to have those channels supported in a grounded way, and an embodied way. We can be embodied psychic channelers and healers and,
Mhm.
medicine men and women, who are doing this great work and have it be spoken in a way that goes beyond just labeling it woo woo because it's not, and these have been ancient scientific
Uh,
traditions like
right.
Ayurveda, Chinese medicine. These things
For
are
sure.
spoken
Like
about.
thousands of years. And
Yeah.
that is, that it's literally only been since the 1800s that
Hmm.
they have changed that, and so it's a couple of generations. So,
Hmm.
that in that time, we've been led to believe certain things that are simply not true, and that the
Hmm.
truth never dies. It will come
Hmm.
out. It may take time, but that's what's happening right now. That's why it's super
Hmm.
exciting, because all the things that our ancestors knew that and lived, those solutions are coming back to the surface.
Yeah.
Plant medicine and herbs and healing this way. Fantastic.
Oh, I love it. Everyone, thank you so much for joining this beautiful healer, to her core. You truly are such a beautiful, gifted healer, and I can feel it. Please reach out to Dr. Lawson because I think, she's just going to be such a gift. If you're listening today, you're listening for a reason. I know you are because, a lot of the folks who tune in will send me emails about like their experiences and like, oh my God, that's exactly what I needed to hear, or that's what I needed. And I have a feeling that you may feel this way with Dr. Dawson. And so please reach out. We'll have her email below and her social media information down below as well. And I'll link her YouTube channel as well, so you can follow along and follow her journey. And also share some ideas on what you'd like for us to talk about now that both of us, do this work. I would love to have more conversations with you. And you can also throw out ideas at something you'd like
Yeah,
to
that
talk
would be so
about.
much fun, Ramon. I would love
Yeah.
that. And just to be able to have this space and to have good
Mm,
conversations. It's wonderful. And,
yeah.
I don't call myself a healer. I know that these
Mm,
tools are super healing. I call
mm,
myself a teacher, and I walk
mm,
with people. And so I know that these tools heal very deeply and permanently, but I
mm,
don't call myself the healer. So it's
mm.
interesting to hear that, and thank you for that honor. But these tools are definitely healing, and it's
Yeah.
what's transformed my life and many people's lives.
I love it. So here you have a teacher of these beautiful healing tools, and reach out. And I agree with you. I have a little bit of an issue with the word healer too, because we're not healing, right? It's healing is coming through, but
Right,
it's not
exactly.
us. Yeah,
Like we're the instruments. I consider myself an instrument
absolutely.
to be used and met, and
Mm,
it also keeps me humble because we all walk this, and
mm,
none of us are immune from it. And but I just thank you for what you're doing and this
mm,
beautiful podcast, and it's
mm.
been such an honor to be with you, and I look forward to our fun times
Yeah,
ahead.
absolutely. So let us know what you'd like for us to talk about. And thank you so much for joining us today.